Now I'm going to speak to Elliot Keck, who is Head of Campaigns at the TaxPayers Alliance. Hi, Elliot. Thank you for joining us. What do you think of Labour's proposed welfare reforms?
Listen, I broadly back the intention to get more people back into work, and in particular young people, because while there's no way that you can look at the statistics that can give you any comfort, it is a problem that is in particular focused on young people. The issue is, though, if you want to get young people back into work, you shouldn't make it a lot more expensive to hire young people, which is what they've done in the budget.
With the national insurance changes?
And the national minimum wage changes as well. So I was just looking at the national minimum wage earlier today. And, when I started in employment at the age of 16, I was paid £3.60 an hour. I can tell you for a fact I would not have been employed if it wasn't for the fact that the minimum wage for 16-year-olds was so low. And now that's significantly higher. I think it's doubled, actually, now for an under 18-year-old. And that's the same also for 18 to 24-year-olds.
Yeah, OK, so the jobs angle is important, obviously, and there being availability of jobs. But a cynic might say it's not the availability of jobs that's the issue, it's the easy availability of certain benefits.
Yeah, listen, I think it's a bit of both. Ultimately, going into an employment, particularly if you're a young person, particularly if it's your first job, maybe it's your first job post-university, is incredibly daunting. I remember I was terrified to go into work post-university. And so if you make work pay less, if you make it more difficult to hire young people, and then you make benefits easier to claim, and perhaps as a society you then start slightly over-medicalising some mental health conditions, or they wouldn't be mental health conditions, I suppose, just ordinary low moods. And, I'm afraid you're going to get kind of a bit of a vicious circle there, really.
Why do you think that while other countries have bounced back in terms of their economic activity levels or inactivity levels, why is this such a persistent problem in the UK? Do you have any clues as to why this is different from the other countries in the G7?
Well, listen, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, when they looked at this over the summer, said that they couldn't quite work out why it is. As you say, we're really the only country that hasn't returned to pre-pandemic levels. The only one that also hasn't returned to pre-pandemic levels, I believe, is Denmark, and even then the situation is much better there than it is here. Listen, I think it's a whole mixture. I think, again, if you're 18 to 24, you will have spent two of the best years, the most important years of your life under pretty strict and aggressive lockdowns, and lockdowns that in particular targeted education. You face an incredibly difficult rental market. You have a degree which is going to lumber you with quite a lot of debt and a really nasty marginal tax rate. Degrees also that are, a lot of them, the second you actually look at how they perform in terms of, salary expectations, the degrees don't look that worth it, I have to say. And now at the same time, it's going to be much, much more difficult for employees to hire you.
I actually wonder if there's also an increase. Well, people obviously had this big knock with the pandemic, but then so did young people in other countries. I wonder whether it's more of a cultural thing. So it's become more acceptable, perhaps, in some places, among some people, to claim benefits and to see it as, and also people's self-diagnosis, as Liz Kendall put it, of mental health conditions. I feel like a lot of people see it as almost part of their identity now. So it's not just that I am experiencing a period of anxiety in my life, but it has become, I am a person with anxiety. It is part of me. It is hardwired into me, which is, I don't know how this has happened, but I have observed it happen over the past decade or so. And you will see sometimes in social media and things, people almost define themselves as a sufferer of X, Y, Z, which doesn't allow for the possibility that this might be a season of your life which you move on from. And of course, if you see yourself in that way, if you categorise yourself in that way, then you would expect maybe never to work.
Yeah, I think everybody probably listening to this can think of somebody who has medicalised what actually is just a fairly usual period of low mood. Perhaps they've just broken up with a long-term partner, or perhaps they've just lost their job, or, a variety of other, genuinely really tough and difficult things have happened to them. I mean, listen, at the same time, for a long time, we probably didn't treat mental health as seriously as we should have done. I mean, this was a big push of David Cameron government, particularly late on, to try and bring mental health close to parity with physical health. But listen, I'm hesitant to think that this younger generation are uniquely to blame, given, as I said, they really have been dealt with a pretty terrible hand. They're the only group, 18 to 24-year-olds, that have seen a fall in employment since the pandemic. Every other group has seen an increase. And so, I think while there certainly is a problem with over-medicalising mental health, the best way to deal with that is to get these young people into work, and that means not making it so much more expensive to hire them.
And some people might make the argument, Elliot, that these people are suffering with their mental health because of perhaps they're sort of reaping the whirlwind of the austerity years, so cutbacks in various public services, which perhaps organisations like the Taxpayers Allowance might have advocated for, but cutbacks in mental health or whatever, and issues with housing and so on, mean that they do just feel that life is tougher, and therefore that's impacted their mental health.
Well, listen, public spending is now, soared to record highs at £1.2 trillion. Yes, we did have a brief period where public spending came down slightly from 2010 to about 2017, but since then it's soared year in, year out in real terms, cash terms, any way you want to measure it. And that has, of course, been accompanied by a significantly higher tax burden that, in particular really falls on people in their 20s. And so, I'm not sure austerity really is to blame. I think, clearly we spend enough money to provide good quality public services. It's just that we don't spend the money in the right way.
OK, thank you. Elliot Keck, Head of Campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance, talking to me about the changes that are coming to welfare.